Hello, everyone, and welcome to Clea's World. I am Clea Annecchiarico, and I have a treat for you guys today because I have another person, a really good friend, who I think of as a role model and a champ when it comes to sovereignty. And you guys know the sovereignty is very much up my list of priorities, and the entire point of what we're doing right now. We're coming to a point where we are going to be accountable for ourselves, and we're not going to rely on authorities, random people under different guises, titles, or elections, whether they're real, those elections are real or not, tell us, they tell us that they know more than we do, and therefore we must listen. So what is the solution? What is the cure to this problem? Is that we take charge of our lives. And Lorraine, who is my guest today, is very much doing that in so many ways. Really, I could speak with her for probably 3 days straight about this stuff, probably longer, but we're going to try and keep this pretty concise because I just want to give you a glimpse of what is possible out there. And that's why we're going to have more guests as well. But I really wanted Lorraine on because I really look up to her when it comes to a lot of the stuff that she is doing. So before we move forward, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe to my channel. And also share this video if you find it helpful and you think it could help someone else. And absolutely, please leave us a comment because we would love to hear what you think about this, where you are with things in life. This is a very challenging moment for many people, but this is a reminder to everyone that we were made for this. This is not too much for us to handle. We are much more powerful than all the forces out there. And that's why the system is crumbling around us. That's just proof of the fact. All right, but let's talk with Lorraine. I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has for us today. Hello, Lorraine, and welcome.
Hello, and thank you. I'm excited to be here. And particularly, this is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. So I'm excited to be sharing information.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I wanted to start with just a brief introduction. And obviously, you cannot really summarize a lifetime in a minute or two. But if you can give us some highlights to tell us, what you're up to and what your background is and whatever you feel is relevant.
Thank you. So I, like everyone else, have been on a journey through this lifetime and have done lots and lots of things and gathered lots and lots of skills and done lots and lots of training gone through pain and turmoil and challenge and struggle. There's a saying that you can't make music without friction. And I think that all of us, if we start looking at our lives more as friction that has created the blossom and the music of who we are now, we can forgive and let go a lot of our angst and anger. Because if we hold on to all of that, we're only harming ourselves. We don't harm the people we're angry at. So I do training I'm in the process of getting a course up. I have been a health facilitator and a spiritual guide teacher, teaching on a myriad of spiritual trainings, crystal mastery, all sorts of things within the spiritual realm, teaching people to access and activate their spiritual gifts, understanding spirituality and the power that we are as humans in a physical body, and teaching people how to be responsible. This comes into this sovereignty topic, to understand their bodies, to communicate with their bodies, to connect with their bodies, their body, mind, and spirit. We are a singular essence, and we're all connected. So if we can start to understand what's going on in our own bodies without the need to go outside, unless there's an accident or something that is seriously emergent, we can manage and take care of our own bodies and be sovereign within our physical being, have the knowledge and understanding of how to care for our bodies so that we don't have to go out to these corrupted systems that are trying to co-opt our beingness and take us further away from our sovereignty. So that's what I'm about. I have a YouTube channel. I have Telegram, you know, all this stuff.
Yes,
I have a Facebook page.
Absolutely. So Lorraine actually is putting herself.
I'm not a fan of Facebook, but
who is? I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody left. The best news I've gotten all week is that apparently Zuckerberg, or whoever we're made to believe is still Zuckerberg, has lost 23 billion. I'm like, okay. But the good news is that apparently it was because he lost 1 million people on Facebook. And I mean, that is just the tip of the iceberg. He doesn't even know what's going to hit him very soon. But, you know, we're past Facebook. I think we're past most big tech. So I wanted to say, I will share Lorraine's information below. I follow her. I think she's got amazing content that's very relevant to the times. And so I hope that you check her out, because she is really a powerful individual, not only very spiritual. There are a lot of people out there who call themselves spiritual. What Lorraine does that is different is that she always goes inside and looks for what resonates, and doesn't drink her own Kool-Aid. She realizes that we have beliefs that are sometimes have been programmed into us, and we tend to bring those into spirituality as well, because a lot of new age spirituality, and if you watch my videos before, you know that I kind of talk on this. A lot of the new age spirituality is just to capture people that escaped religion. It's the same principle, which is, let me tell you what you think. We have changed the paradigm here. It's all about who we think, what resonates with us. And Lorraine is very much a person who believes in that and walks the walk. Now, I do apologize for a couple of things. So you probably have seen the screen shake. It was not an earthquake. We do not have earthquakes here. It was my cat. And the second thing is that I could hear a little bit of static from Lorraine coming through in the audio. Hopefully this is okay, and it's not too loud on your end. But you know, we do with the best we can. Unfortunately, we don't control telecommunications yet, but we will. All right, so it's all good. So can you tell us a little bit how you came to be the person that you are? Were you always like this, very independent? Did you ever have to compromise like a lot of us have to do? For example, I'll just give you an example from my own story. I was always very connected, very psychic when I was, as I was born, until I was a teenager. And eventually I realized nobody cares about that stuff. I mean, there was no internet at the time, so I was alone, really. And I basically shut all that down until I realized, hey, the world is awakening, and all of a sudden here I am, I'm back. In your case, did you ever have to deal with any of that, or was it something that you've always kept your entire life?
Actually, no. When I was young, very young, infant, I had trauma, and I think through that trauma, it caused me to be very emotionally dependent on the external reality. I was always seeking to feel loved, and even though I come from a very loving family, I had a grandmother that I think was the single stable force that allowed me to remain sane in the world, because I knew she loved me. I felt loved by her. But as a young person, I have a very narcissistic father, but I've always looked at my father as a child, like he's 5. And I sort of go, okay, he's 5. But I desperately wanted to be loved. And so I complied. I was the goodest girl ever. I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do and be. And So it wasn't until, and then I developed illness, which we often do if we're stuffing our emotions. Our body has to let it out some way. Um, and so I became very, very sick. And it was asthma. So it was in my expression. I couldn't breathe, therefore I couldn't express. Recently, like just a couple of days ago, I had this aha moment. When I was a child, I would sing all the time. Like I was singing constantly, and it was my emotional um, way to release, I think. And I would make up songs, ditties, and from all appearances, I was the happiest child on earth. I was always singing, I was always smiling. I sort of, my mother coined me as the Pollyanna of the world, because I was always looked at everything glass half full, everything's good, life is good. But inside, I was struggling. And so I developed illness, but this illness was the gift of my life, in that it forced me to stop focus. It taught me to recognize that it was okay to say no, and it was okay to focus inward and not outward. And in 2000, I was introduced to a spiritual training that I participated in for 15 years until I outgrew it years before, but kept hanging around because it was my community. But in that training, as dysfunctional as it was, I learned how to access and recognize that I had always been getting spiritual guidance, but I didn't recognize it. Basically, for source and spirit to get my attention, I had to basically be hit over the head by a 2x4. So I always say that my spiritual journey was the 2x4 method, because I just didn't listen. I didn't know to listen. I didn't know how to listen. And over those 15 years, I learned to absolutely surrender. And from that time till now, I've surrendered even more. I've had events and things that have happened that have assisted me in finally releasing all of the baggage and the stuff that was piled on top of me and covering up my brilliance. And I've stopped, I don't care what other people think. I don't have an ego investment in any of it. My whole purpose in life is to be of service and help people move through this. And in the process, I live a pretty lovely life. I live in the country, hence the internet. I raise chickens. That's always there's always a little drama with chickens, but the prey animals that they are. But my life unfolds easily because I'm not attached to events and things happening in any particular way. I live my life moment by moment with what is presented in front of me. I am living the here and now. And I think that's the biggest challenge for most people, is to learn to not project into the future or hang on to the past. Life actually can be easy when you're addressing what is in front of you, what you need to deal with right now, and allowing yourself the gift of unfoldment.
Yeah, if I may say something, that we have a bit of a delay, so I don't want to talk on top of you. I think you said I mean, you gave a lot of truths in a very short amount of time. That's pretty impressive. You said that one of our biggest challenges that you focus on, and I want to repeat it because it is that powerful, is that we must be present. We must be dealing with the reality in front of us. Whereas a lot of us, me included, because it's a challenge for me as well, we project into the future. We color everything with we're either in the future or in the past. We're never really here. And the only, as a reminder, and I know a lot of my viewers know this, is that the only point of power is now. That's the only time we can actually make a difference. The problem is that we tend to believe that the present is the present, when in reality, most of the way we live our present is a continuation of the past, of what we set in motion in the past. And we think that because the present looks this way, the future will look the same way, or just a small evolution from this present moment. We don't realize, because we've never been told, for good reason, because the powers that were had no interest in us knowing this, that the future can look wildly different, because at the end of the day is whatever we manifest, whatever we think, our thoughts create reality. The other thing that you said that was very powerful, and you said it both when you were explaining about your background and right now, is when you were referring to going inside to heal yourself. Of course, if you get in an accident, that's, you know, hopefully there's a hospital nearby, and that's, you know, Western medicine is great for that. But short of that, for anything that is chronic, they cannot cure anything like that. The best they can do is maintain. And what they mean maintain, they give you toxic medicine that will make you worse and worse over time. Okay, because there is no steady state nature. Something is either being cured, is being healed, or is getting worse. You will be able to maybe hide the symptoms for a long time, but at the end of the day, it's not getting cured, which means it's getting worse, especially if you haven't changed the underlying causes. What Lorraine is talking about is going inside, even when it comes to taking care of ourselves, because our innate knowledge, our body's innate ability to heal itself is infinite. Again, we've never been told this, because there's a whole huge industry that thrives off of us being sick and not knowing. So things don't happen by chance. But this topic of going inside expands to everything in our lives. This is what we were saying at the introduction of this video. What resonates with you? Go inside for the answers. We do have all the answers inside. It's okay to watch people, for example, on YouTube to see what they think. That doesn't mean that everything they say is gold, including what I say. I've never told anybody, yes, let's listen to me because I've got the truth in my pocket. We're all doing the best, trying to figure out what is going on. And the more you go inside to see what resonates with you, the more you'll realize that you know what is going on. It is only when we go outside of ourselves that we make ourselves powerless. So thank you for that. Thank you for giving me the opportunity one more time to, I think I'm like a broken record when it comes to these things, but you know, it's a reminder for myself as well to always double check, triple check with how I feel about something. So in fact, I'm getting ready to put a video out about some of the stuff you said in regards to a lot of the programming we have around the fact that we have to learn things the hard way. So that's a whole different story. I'll be, as I said, I'll be producing a new video today. But okay, so you have a very fascinating life. It sounds like you've done a lot of introspection and a lot of growth on your own, and that you've done a lot of things that are unusual. Like a lot of people do not live, you know, have not lived through spirituality the way that you have. So out of all of this, what have you found? I guess I want to ask, what has been your experience with people? What kind of responses have you gotten from people? Like, what are you seeing out in the world when it comes to people?
A lot of confusion, a lot of numbness, and a lot of people are discovering that what they believe, that their foundational understandings of their life and everything around them is not real. Now, There are those that are ostriches that are putting their head in the sand and refusing to look at it, because let's face it, we've all had a structure. We've all become accustomed to a structure. Humans innately are creatures that the majority, let's talk in bigger swaths here. The majority of people like to have routine. They like structure. We are always seeking comfort. From the time we birth into this existence, our primary goal is comfort. So if comfort is good and pain is bad, anything that confronts our idea of reality is pain and it's bad. This is the primary programming that everything is being built on top of. Everything is to keep us scared and in pain so that we will seek comfort, which is being offered to us by the ones that are creating the pain. At least it appears that we're being offered the comfort. So people right now, because the comfort isn't being offered really, people are having their whole world disrupted and collapsed. Their whole sense of reality, the structures of their lives. And I want to say this because I know it's been said before. I'm not the first one to say it, but this whole last 2 years with this C word has been a huge gift to humanity. It has, and then the subsequent 2 years of absolute life-changing existence has created the change, the destruction of our structure. We've been given this gift of our structure being altered dramatically and swiftly. It wasn't this long drawn out so we could get used to it. It was our lives changed overnight. What an amazing gift for humanity to have everything ripped away and stripped away. And it's global, so that we can alter and change. So we come to this point of choice and we say, wow, I don't like this. What is this? And how do I change it? How do I exist within it? And how do I now build my future structure? So we've had this major collapse of our reality, and we're now being forced to see underneath all the dirt and all the, pardon my French, crap that has been underneath building that has been controlling us, and now we're seeing it. All the scurrying cockroaches are coming up and we're going, whoa, what the heck just happened? So we're now being given this gift of restructuring, finding out that we need other humans in our lives, finding out that we want community, finding out that what we've counted on, global, products and junk from all over the world, may not be accessible. And then what? How do we as a society move forward and access the things that make us feel comfortable, that give us a sense of continuity? So we're relearning that the crafts of the old, the local community products, the cabinet makers and the local mills and the local stores that provide us goods and services. We're coming to appreciate that. So we're going to be coming into a point where we come into our local communities. We start building community again, not through the internet, although that provides us a global connection, but we're going to start to appreciate what is in front of us in our local communities. We're going to have to learn to interact and communicate again. We're going to have to learn the skills that our forefathers had. For instance, in the United States, in the early 1700s, do you know that 90%, 90% of the society, from adult down to children, were educated? Now, we're led to believe, because we've been lied to about our history, that they were all ignorant and did not know how to read. Do you know that they had a vocabulary that was much broader than ours? If you get access to some of the old books, you find that their vocabulary and their knowledge and their sense of who they were as people was so much stronger than ours now. I've been, as you know, Clea, that I have become a living woman on the soil. And I know this is something that you've been interested in finding out more about. Can you hear me? Did I just mute myself? Am I good?
No, you're good. I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. I touched my earbud and it beeped, so they're new. So a living woman on the land and soil, and this would be a topic that we might cover for several videos, but it's a movement started by a woman and her husband, Anna von Reitz, and she has a website and is a prolific writer, so she blogs all the time. But she is a counselor, used to be called attorney. However, if you don't know, all attorneys, all licensed attorneys you've heard the term the bar. Well, the bar is an actual bar in London that binds all attorneys that pass the bar to the global elite structure. So they're basically, when they get licensed, and this happens with our medical physicians as well, the licensure binds them to the global corporate elite overlord structure. Everyday humans don't know this, and we don't know that basically by their licensure, they are signing their authority over to these elite structures, which then control them, whether they like it or not. Now, I'm not saying that all attorneys are bad and all medical doctors are bad. The majority of them are people that got into the industry because they wanted to help people. They wanted to be of service. And we have to remember that the majority of people inherently are good. However, we have a structure that is designed to corrupt and enslave. So becoming a woman on the land and soil means that I declared that I no longer engage, or I've pulled my life back from the corporate structure. The United States is a corporate entity. The 5 miles or whatever the size of DC is a corporate entity, and it has been a an entity since this end of the 1800s, 1890 something, I think. But here's the thing. If you read your documents and you dig them up. Now, I can only speak about the United States because that's where I reside. That's where I was born. However, at the end of the Revolutionary War, this is falling out. Sorry. I don't want it to, it's got very strange, touchy things. At the end of the Revolutionary War, our forefathers signed documents to end the war that basically gave England, the King of England, some rights to our operation and function. Now, as an American, we were never told. We were told that we won the war and that we kicked the English out. We didn't do that. They have had their fingers in America, entangled within everything. They have governed and they have controlled and manipulated. And then the Vatican got in there because England gave Vatican the DC area. So we have been enslaved with the false illusion of sovereignty. And for instance, the United States has two flags. We have the wartime flag, which is the flag everybody sees that they call Old Glory, and it's got very specifics. And the flags of nations goes back to maritime law. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about maritime law, which is water and air law, and land and soil law. Now, this is a big subject, and I hope that your listeners take the opportunity to look into it because it's critical for moving forward as sovereign individuals. But we've been under maritime law, which is these unwittingly. So the American flags, that we have the peacetime flag and the wartime flag. The flag that everyone sees, Old Glory, is the wartime flag. The peacetime flag flew for 22 years only. The peacetime flag has, in our entire 216 or something, however many years we are, only flew for 22 years. The rest of the time, we have been in declared war. That should tell the people a lot about how we have been functioning as a country. So sovereignty in and of itself means that you stop taking the narrative that you've been fed, spoon-fed, I might say, and you start reading your history. You get down to the depths. You don't take the history that you're getting in school because it's not true. And let's face it, the first thing we need to do as sovereign individuals is throw everything out the window and go, okay, what makes sense? What makes logical sense?
Yes, I love that. And I love that you're giving some practical advice on things that can be done. Now, we'll definitely, what I meant earlier is that we'll definitely link, I think we should link this counselor, Anne, so that people can inform themselves. You said she's a prolific writer, so I'm sure she has a wealth of information in our blog. And I look forward to your videos about this this entire topic. I have been perusing this topic for some time. I don't call myself an expert, a Weber. I just assume that everything we've been told is not real in school. And I always tell everybody, we don't even know if math and geography are real. we don't even know, for the simple reason that once you start questioning everything, you start questioning the agenda, the real agenda about this entire education system, for example. you realize that why would they even give you any truth? Because then you start thinking on your own, right? So they wouldn't want that. I'm sure there is different ways of seeing reality. I mean, we see it with science all the time. You know, why do we make advances? And we feel like we're so advanced, but then we find out that there were things that worked much better hundreds of years ago. I was not aware about the literacy rate, which does not surprise me at all. I have seen books being dumbed down from year to year. So I've seen books for for people like in 5th grade, where from 100 years ago, for example, where they were discussing finance concepts that I had learned in the MBA. And the following year, they would take those out. And all of a sudden, we have basically books you spend years and years in school and you learn basically nothing. There are people that come out of there barely know how to, very few people know how to write, but I actually know how to write. And some people don't even know how to read. They can't even read properly. This is not because we are lacking. This is done on purpose. They do whatever they can to make you despise education and learning, because the more you've actually seen documents talk about this, how they were going to use this against us, because they don't want the information to be spread. Because again, then you start questioning how such a small number of people is controlling the whole planet. Now, I know a lot of people think this is conspiracy. Of course, the worst conspiracy was not a word that came up by chance. It was put out, by 3-letter organizations so that you could, instead of engaging in conversation with your fellow human, you would just label them, based on what you've been told to do. I have seen a lot of this, obviously, the past 2 years. The good news is that I do think a lot more people are realizing that, probably 99% of conspiracies are true. So it's not a conspiracy anymore at that point, if it turns out to be true. So it's all very interesting. I am watching the time. It's 11. Interestingly, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you have, I promise we'll keep this below an hour. But I wanted to.
I'm fine.
So as I said, we will link the information that you mentioned. So if you were to, of course, you're a veteran at this. But if you were to advise somebody who's just starting out, and, for example, somebody like me, I don't grow my own food, I don't make bread, I know you're baking, and I wish I lived closer to you, but that's not to be. Maybe you can mail it to me. Things like that. I know you do a lot of things. You mentioned chickens, but a normal person who's just starting out and saying, okay, I don't want to live in the structure anymore. What shall I do? What would be your advice on one of the, 1 or 2 things they could do that are not overwhelming, but where you could start taking your power back?
Sure. So that was me a few years ago. I lived in the suburbs. I had a little yard. I had flowers and perennials, and I was beautifying. I didn't grow any of my own food. I didn't, I was doing my spiritual training, but I wasn't doing anything to really, at that point in time, I didn't see the need to maybe go, hey, things may be a little wacky going forward, and I might need to take back some of my own control, because I didn't see it as handing my power away to the grocery stores or the truckers or the global production. I didn't see it as that, but that in fact is what it is. We have been handing our power away to the external. Up into the 50s, everyone had a garden. Everyone grew some of their own food up until the 50s. Now, those people living in cities like Boston, New York, Chicago probably weren't growing their own food, but I'll bet that there were gardens, food growing in what was available in the cities, because that was the normal way that people operated. There wasn't this global access to food all year round. People needed to grow their own food because it wasn't necessarily available. Industrial farming didn't really come into being until the 50s. So for 70 years, we have had this shift where we were systematically handing our power away to big corporate systems to provide us with what we needed. That was a big mistake that we didn't see. We were told it was for convenience. And, if you look back at some of the old commercials, my gosh, even in the 80s when I think it was the 80s when the microwave came in, all of these things are really funny now, but we didn't see what we were doing to ourselves because they didn't want us to see it. Now, I'm not a wacko. I'm not a whack job. I'm a rational, logical person who has observed what's been happening, and I have taken it upon myself to educate myself. So my husband and I left the suburbs of Seattle and went about, when he retired, he wanted to travel and see the United States. And I thought, well, that sounds like fun. It turned out it wasn't as fun, although it was very life transforming. It wasn't as fun as I had wanted it to be, but it was a pivotal moment in my life. There were many pivotal moments in my life during that 4.5 years of moving around. However, I told my husband, I want to live in the country, I want to be near water, and I need trees, preferably mountains, because I'm kind of a mountain girl. So we looked everywhere in the country, and we finally ended up in Virginia, not West Virginia, but Western Virginia. And it's all small towns. It's very country. It's very rural. It's very conservative. Most people have a garden here. And you'll find in the country, most people have some form of garden. Because the access to organic produce, the access to food that they may want to have is not necessarily available. Yes, there are grocery stores and they have vegetables, but their variety is limited. And let's face it, as humans, we like variety, and it's really good for us to have variety. So people have their own garden. So during this 4 years of traveling around, I watched all sorts of homesteading videos. My dream was this homesteading. Now I'm older and I physically don't have the ability to be a homesteader. I had to accept that fact. But I can have chickens, and those arrived in my life last year. And so I've learned a lot about chickens. I've had a lot of chicken loss by my own ignorance and by nature, because I let them free range, which is a chicken truly is a velociraptor smaller. My very first days with the chickens, I was actually afraid of the chickens because they're velociraptors. They look like velociraptors. They're velociraptors. They are, they're carnivorous. They're cannibalistic. They're strange little creatures, but they produce eggs. And if you want to have control over your food supply, chickens are like the first thing to do, because I feed mine. I pay a whole lot of money for their feed, but they free range. So they eat the majority of bugs and grass and vegetation, which is great. And then I provide them corn-free, soy-free feed. And then they give you eggs. And the thrill of having your very first egg is something that until you have that experience that this is the thing I've come to know. And I don't know that our farmers and our people that have produced food, because they've been doing it generationally, remember the thrill. But the thrill of going out to your garden and picking your first ripe tomato and smelling it and tasting it and then cooking with it and consuming it is there's nothing on earth that is that satisfying, to know that you put in the effort and energy to produce your food. This is sovereignty. And people, you can start with a pot on a balcony in the city growing something. You can start by recognizing, and so I make my own mayonnaise. So instead of depending on going to the grocery store and getting your own mayonnaise, mayonnaise is really easy. And I can't believe that all the years that I bought mayonnaise, and let's face it, the majority of mayonnaises out there are soy oil and corn oil, which are the most corrupted crops. So if you make your own, you can make it with really good olive oil or avocado oil. You know, it's a cup of oil to 1 egg. Throw in some, a few tablespoons of lemon juice, salt and pepper, whatever else you want in there, and you blend it and you get mayonnaise. And it doesn't always turn out perfect, because sometimes I get a little carried away and put a little too many things in there that I shouldn't. But I'm making my own mayonnaise, and then I'm using it in my own production of food, and the thrill and satisfaction of that. I wish for everybody that they learn to just look at what they use in their household, what they make in their families, and then say, okay, what can I do? Like, I make my own pasta. It's not easy because I do it with almond flour and cassava flour. My husband is gluten-free, so I had to start learning how to make a lot of things at home years ago. But there's so much that we depend on that we don't realize, that so much of our food in particular has been corrupted and used as a bioweapon against us to make us sick so that we are more compliant. Because if you have a sick population, they are desperately in need of help, and they will let you take care of them because they are too sick to do it for themselves. When we start taking back the control of the food that we put in our bodies, grass-fed beef, grass-fed and grass-finished, it is more expensive, but you don't need more than 4 to 6 ounces of protein a day to live a healthy life. There's so much that if you realize that they feed chickens in big production arsenic and all sorts of other toxic things, that what you eat, what you eat, sorry, I'm trying to say, what you eat or what you consume what you eats. So if your beef cattle, if your chickens, if your pigs are eating junk, then guess what? That nourishment is transferring right into your body.
Yeah.
All the toxins get held in the fat, and it comes right into your body. So if you start reading the labels of what you're buying at the store, anything processed in order to stay on the shelf is toxic, because it's got chemicals in it that are not good for your body. Yeah. Bread, was one of the first things that was corrupted a long time ago. They took out leavening agents and they put in stuff that actually blocks the ability of the thyroid to absorb iodine and the other chemicals it needs to survive. And that happened in bread. There's so much that you can be as an individual educating yourself about health and wellness. Start learning how to forage. Our countrysides, and there's a lot of them, we are not overpopulated. The countryside is filled with food that you could be gathering and eating. You need to learn to change your taste buds maybe a little bit and recognize that there is bounty to be had in the wilderness. So
yeah,
I hope I didn't ramble too much. I hope that
I think it's
gives your audience.
Yeah, I love it. I will say one thing as on the receiving end, because some of the viewers might have this thought. It sounds like a lot, but nobody starts by doing everything at once. So that's when Lorraine is saying, maybe start having a small garden, play with it. We are lucky that we don't have to change overnight. However, anything you do, even like smelling your own tomatoes that you've grown, is going to give you more of a taste and more of an eagerness to become sovereign in the next thing. And that can expand to your finances. There are many, for example, we should all be patronizing community banks as opposed to the evil, the barons that are destroying our world. There is so much to be said. As I said, we could be talking about this for days. So, but in the interest of time, we will, yeah, go ahead, please.
I just want to say on the banks, actually look for a credit union, not a federal credit union, a state chartered credit union, if you can find it, because credit unions are owned by their members. So
yes,
credit unions are better than banks, but small state chartered banks.
Thank you for specifying. That's actually what I
really
meant. I should have been more precise. Yes, there is so much, and absolutely that's a good move right there, because basically you're starving the system. They're taking all of this from you and using it against you. I mean, is it strange for anyone else but me to think that you were talking about people having their own gardens? Do you know that it's illegal in most cities and in most places to have your own garden? Why would that be? Who cares if you're growing carrots in your backyard? Why would they pass laws where they say you can't? That's very interesting to me. Or why would it be okay for a company to put, like you were talking about, arsenic in the chicken's feed, but even other crap that's completely toxic? It's funny because the EPA will tell you, hey, this thing is toxic, but then the FDA will say, oh no, you can put it, you can use it, it's fine. Like they're always lying from both sides of their mouth, as I always say. But let's wrap it up here. And are there any very quick final thoughts or words you'd like to share?
Don't get overwhelmed. Start by getting some books on foraging if you want to learn how to gather your own food. If in any event, those are a good thing to have in your arsenal should you need them. Start small. Don't overwhelm yourself. Get a couple of pots and plant just one or two things. Because if you overwhelm yourself and create too much work for yourself, you won't do it. Learn about, make your own mayonnaise or other things that are small and simple.
Yeah,
and expand from there.
Yeah. One thing I have done, which was super easy to do, is I use only non-toxic soaps and products, even to clean my house. The first thing you can do is Remove the pollution, your chemical pollution they're selling you at the supermarket, telling you, hey, this is great. This takes all stains away. Guess what? You can take stains away without killing yourself. And it's really easy because I've done it and I am not a do-it-yourselfer. It's really easy even to make your own products in that sense. I use vinegar, and I'm pointing towards it. That's what I was looking at. I use vinegar, white wine vinegar, to clean my floor. That's super easy, super cheap. You get this big bottle, it lasts forever. So things are made to look a lot harder than they are, because like you said, it was sold to us as it's convenient. So you don't have to be a slave. And of course, they're showing us these images that look like a house in the prairie where they were doing everything, even going to get water. So it looks very overwhelming. But the truth is, it doesn't have to be that way. And there are groups online you can join. You can get an education very, very quickly. I belong to a holistic group of mothers. They are like a wealth of information, because again, one more time, and Lorraine mentioned it at the beginning of this interview, is that community is about community. You don't have to do everything yourself. You can join with others. So thank you so much, Lorraine. This was super interesting. I really could go for a while. We always end up talking for hours. So that is the truth. But I really want to share this with my viewers. Because it's important, because we don't get people like you in this lifestyle doesn't get enough airtime, because it goes against all the big interests, right? That is, they're trying to feed us crap and put us down and, and keep us small. But the fact is, we are going to take our power back. I have no doubt, I'm an optimist, but I'm also watching the writing on the wall. I see what's happening out there. Like you said, the past 2 years have been a gift. So many people now are growing their own food and doing this kind of thing, because we figured out that it really is not as difficult as we thought it was. Just as simple as that. So thank you again.
It's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not.
All right. Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and stay tuned for more content. I'll definitely have more people who embody sovereignty, just because you can see, many people do it different ways, and it's all good. As long as you figure out your way of taking your power back, we're going in the right direction. We can't go wrong. All right, well, thanks again for watching. Please, again, like this video, share if you found it interesting, and definitely leave us a comment below, because we like to hear from you. Take care, and bye-bye.